A heavy iron zeech sat rattled against the cold concrete as the solid black German shepherd lunged with a scream that echoed through the abandoned base. The death warrant was signed. Titan had 48 hours left before he was liquidated. Just then, Elias Thorne, a man who had spent a decade hiding in the shadows of the Red Rocks, suddenly killed his engine. He didn't see a vicious beast. He saw a broken radar scanning for a threat that wasn't there. A ghost he last saw in a dusty valley in Helmand. He wasn't stopping for a dog, he was stopping for a soldier. Eli Thorne lived in a converted van parked where the red dust of Abiquiu met the silence of the mesa. For 10 years, he had lived by a simple rule. If it doesn't fit in the van, it isn't yours. He had traded his uniform for the wind and the desert, seeking a place where no one could give him a command he'd regret. He left the world behind, and in return, the world forgot his name. But today, the world had a loud, angry voice. Officer Miller stood by the rusted gate of the abandoned base, his shoulder wrapped in a fresh bandage. His face was a mask of pale fury. Beside him, Dr. Sarah Vance clutched a clipboard like a shield, her voice a soft, desperate plea against Miller's hard certainty. To Miller, the solid black shepherd in the cage was a liability that needed to be erased. To Sarah, he was a tragedy she couldn't fix. Eli watched from 30 yards away, his gloved hand tightening on the fence. He didn't look at the men. He looked at Titan. The dog wasn't lunging anymore. His head snapped up, muzzle pointing toward the jagged ridge of the canyon. Most people would see a distracted animal. Miller saw a monster looking for its next victim. But Eli saw the radar. In the wild, a dog rarely looks at the sky. Threats come from the ground. But in the dusty valleys of Helmand, death came from Trancau. Titan wasn't being erratic. He was scanning the high ground for the hum of a drone or the whistle of a mortar. He wasn't a rabid beast. He was a soldier, still fighting a war in a land that had gone quiet. Miller's finger hovered over the trigger of his radio, but Sheriff Holloway's hand stopped him. 48 hours, Eli said. It wasn't a request, it was a mission profile. He didn't wait for an answer. Eli didn't bring a catchpole or a tranquilizer. He walked to the edge of the quarantine zone with an old, olive-drab army blanket. He spread it on the sun-baked concrete, exactly 6 feet from Titan's cage. He sat down, his side turned to the snarling animal, and opened his field journal. Most people try to tame fear with force. They shout, they rattle the bars, they demand submission. Eli did the opposite. He offered the art of presence. To a dog like Titan, a direct gaze is a declaration of war. Every sudden movement is a potential strike. By turning away and focusing on his pen, Eli was offering the ultimate gift to a traumatized soldier: neutrality. His breathing was slow, deliberate. His heart rate stayed steady, projecting a low-energy field that acted like a stabilizer in a room full of explosives. You don't stop a wildfire by blowing on it. You starve it of fuel. Eli was starving Titan's panic by refusing to react to it. Titan lunged. The iron zeech shrieked against the bars, the sound sharp enough to draw blood. Eli didn't flinch. He didn't even look up. He just moved his pen across the yellowed pages of the journal. The snarling subsided into a jagged growl. Then, a confused silence. Titan retreated to the far corner of the shadows, his black flanks heaving. He watched the man. The man was a stone. He wasn't a threat, and he wasn't a comfort. He was just a solid, unchanging fact in a world that had fallen apart. As the shadows of the red rocks lengthened, Titan took a single, shaky step toward the bars. He didn't bark. He didn't snap. He stretched his neck, sniffing the scent of the CLP and desert dust clinging to the old blanket. Titan wasn't looking for a master. He was looking for an anchor. Miller stood by the chain-link gate, his eyes fixed on the dust trails rising from the horizon. 4 hours, Eli. That's when the transport arrives. He's a liability to the county, but he's an asset to them.
Elias,
a weapon to be stripped for parts. Walk away. Sarah stepped between them, her fingers white as she gripped a medical folder. She looked from the paper to Titan, then at Eli. I checked his ear, Eli.
The animal needs
the
to
serial
be
number. W442. He was first K9, out of Helmand. He was in your unit.
You never talk about what happened in Afghanistan.
He stared at the jagged red Vok jaw of Abiquiu, the wind tugging at his M65 jacket. For a decade, the silence had been his only protection. Now, it was a cage. I didn't leave because of the fire, Sarah, he said, his voice a low, rusty rasp. He turned to look at Titan, who was still scanning the high ground with a desperate rhythmic intensity. In the war, Ho train you for the fear. But they don't train you for the tearing of the soul. They call no-la moral injury. It's what happens when you believe you violated the very core of who you are. He looked at his gloved hand, the one that had held the leash for years. I thought I killed him. I gave the command to move forward. I sent Max into a shadow I should have cleared. Every night for 15 years I've heard the blast. I felt the leash go slack in my hand. He wasn't just a man hiding from the world. He was a handler who had lost his way. He wasn't trying to save Titan because it was the right thing to do. He was a ghost, trying to settle a debt that could never be paid. The dial tone hummed, a thin wire of sound stretching across 15 years of silence. Eli stood by the highway payphone, the fluorescent light flickering above like a dying star. His breath hitched as the line clicked. James, Eli whispered. The name felt like glass in his throat. The silence on the other end was heavy.
James.
Physical. Eli. James's voice was rough, aged by seasons Eli hadn't seen. You're alive.
You left us to die.
You vanished, Frank. No funeral, no letter. You just let the world go black.
How could you just leave us there
I had
die,
to,
Elias?
Eli said, his eyes closed against the desert wind.
You just
I
left
killed
us
him,
there.
James. I gave the command.
Abiquiu.
I sent Max into that shadow. A sharp, choking sound came through the receiver.
Don't you dare
It
act
wasn't
like
grief.
you understand.
It was fury. Is that what you've been telling yourself?
You left me
James's
there,
voice
Elias.
rose, cracking with a decade of held-back truth. You think you're the only one who bled that day? You left me,
I didn't forget
Eli.
what you did, Elias.
You left me to carry the weight of a hero alone while you played ghost in the canyons. James
You don't
took
know
a
what you're
shuddering
talking
breath.
about, Elias.
Max didn't move because you told him
You
to.
left us.
He moved because I made a mistake. I stepped off the line, Eli.
You walked away.
I was moving toward a secondary device I didn't see. Max didn't follow your lead. He tackled me.
You just
He
left
threw
me
90
there.
pounds of muscle into my chest and knocked me into the dirt. He took the blast so I could go home to my kids. The phone cord twisted in Eli's hand. The
You were supposed
world
to be
tilted.
there.
The moral injury he had carried wasn't a crime.
You get to run.
It was a ghost built on a lie. And
But
that
I'm
dog
still
you're
here.
holding on to? Titan? James's voice softened, but the edge remained.
You're just trying to rewrite history,
Look at
aren't
his
you,
ears,
Elias?
Frank. Look at the way he scans the high ground. That's not just training, that's
Max
blood.
hit that guy with the force of a
W442
battering
is the
ram.
only pup from Max's final litter. He's Max's son.
It was all
He's the
dirt
only piece of your partner left in this
and
world.
chaos.
And you're about to let them kill him twice.
You carried it all for us.
The sky over Abiquiu fractured.
You
A
carried it all
concussive
for
roar of
us.
thunder turned the canyons into a strobe light of terror. To Titan, it wasn't a storm. It was Helmand. He shattered the latch and vanished into the rising smoke. Miller raised his rifle at the trailhead, his knuckles white. He's a public threat, Eli. Stand
A
aside.
ghost built on a lie.
Eli didn't argue. He stepped directly into the line of fire, his gaze as hard as the canyon stone. Miller flinched and lowered the steel. Eli found him trapped at the bottom of a jagged fissure. Titan's black fur was
You were his
matted with
anchor.
red mud, his breathing shallow. Eli slid down the shale, the rock tearing at his palms. He didn't
After
use a
everything,
leash. He wrapped Titan in
you
the
still
old
believe
olive
that,
drab
don't you?
army blanket, bracing his legs against the crumbling wall.
See how he turns his ears.
He hauled 90 pounds of muscle and memory toward the light. He wasn't just pulling a dog from a hole. He was bringing Max's son back from the dead.
He's still scanning the high ground.
He's still got that
Eli
vigilance.
Thorne didn't restart his engine. Miller
is a soldier,
approached,
Elias.
silent, and
Yeah,
placed a
call him
heavy
the
medical
Titan,
kit on the
Lloyd.
table.
Yes.
The only apology men like him ever give.
Titan
Eli
is
looked at
Max's son.
Titan, asleep on the olive
He's
blanket.
been with me since
He
was
saw
a
the
pup.
scars on the dog's
After you
leg and the
disappeared.
marks on his own hands. They weren't failures. They were a symphony of survival.
Max put himself between them and me.
Healing doesn't mean the scars vanish. It means they no longer hurt. Eli finally unzipped his jacket and stayed. He wasn't a ghost anymore. He was home.